This is The Final Word with Jeff Lemon and Adam Collins, and we're joined by a cast of thousands for this interview. Well, a cast of three, but that makes five, which is quite a lot of people to have together in a conversation for the most part. We're delving into the story of Brazilian cricket. We were put onto this by Alistair Townsend, one of our listeners, who's involved over there. And we're talking today to Roberta Moretti, the captain of the Brazil women's team, and Matt Featherstone, who's the head of Cricket Brazil, amongst other titles, and lives out there and has done for a while now. First of all, welcome to the show, everybody.
Many thanks. Great to be here.
Thank you very much, guys. Very good to be here with you this morning.
I suppose the story that drew us in from Alistair was initially about the way that Cricket Brazil awarded central contracts to 14 women's players and made the decision, a bit like the Thailand Cricket Federation made, that backing their women's team was going to move faster and bear fruit more readily than backing their men's team, which is a nice turnaround from the attitudes we see from most established boards, where men's cricket comes first, second, third, through to about 19th, and then maybe women's cricket comes in after that. I guess maybe Matt, to start us off, you could tell us about how that came about, how central contracts came about, how the ability to offer central contracts came about, and your involvement in that dating back a couple of decades.
I mean, initially, I think the surprise for a lot of people with the central contracts in Brazil for the women's team first was a surprise for many, but for us, because we were very fortunate that the cricket's always been a sport for all, we've come in with a fairly blank piece of paper with cricket. So there's no protocols that it's a men's sport, it's a women's sport. So we actually have as many women playing in Brazil as we do men. So that's a great start. So when we're already on an even playing field with numbers, potentially we just saw that the ability with the women was growing quicker. The ability for the women to proceed in the world of women's cricket we thought would be quicker, so therefore us making that decision, putting the sort of our best team forward, and they are our best team, our most successful team, we thought that would make the biggest impact as quick as possible, and it is. I think it's proven. We've had central contacts for a year now, and we are really looking forward to getting out there playing against some countries after the pandemic and showing the ability of the national women's team here.
And having cricket set up in Brazil in the first place, you played a key part in that. Can you give our listeners the Cliff Notes version of those early days and how it came about?
Cricket's actually been around in Brazil since 1872, so I wasn't definitely the one that brought it over here. What we actually decided was from about 2001, when we put the association together, and we joined the ICC in 2006, was how we make cricket for Brazilians. It's always been an expat sport. Our idea was then, let's go out, give people the opportunity to play cricket. And as we know, it's the best game in the world. So why would Brazilians not like it? They've just missed out on the opportunity of being able to play it. Now they've got that opportunity. And therefore, taking that on, we had the bonus of them having a Brazilian game that they played in the streets called taco, which is a similar form of cricket. And so we took that on, we introduced it, and why wouldn't they be good? Absolutely, there's a real chance that now they are playing, that we see that the Brazilian national team will grow up the rankings and will continue to grow.
Yeah, it's interesting seeing the game of taco and how that corresponds with, I suppose, other countries around the world in the 1800s that had a big cricket influence, courtesy of the British, I suppose. But this is a slightly different slant on that. Can you go into, perhaps Roberta, a bit of detail about what taco is, how it's played, and how kids growing up might have played that game without necessarily knowing what cricket is?
Yeah, sure. It's very common here in Brazil to see kids playing in the streets. For my generation, one of the most common games was taco. So all you need is a cup of bottles, a tennis ball, whatever piece of wood you find, and it's just like this fun game that everybody used to play. So it doesn't matter where you are in Brazil. If you're here, if you're in the seaside, if you are in big cities, everybody plays taco. They have different names across the country, but it is like this feeling of being the best taco player in the street that everybody's always chasing. So everybody was the best one in their street, regardless of who you're talking to. and it brings like great memories. So when I actually got to see cricket for the first time, that's when I realized where taco came from. I didn't know there was a sport that was related to taco before. And when you see cricket, you start seeing the relations of the wickets, hitting the stumps, being caught and things like that. So I guess all kids play a form of street cricket here in Brazil, and it's a game that makes everyone very happy and makes everyone bring those childhood memories with a lot of affection, and is actually related to cricket.
And there's this beautiful intersection, I suppose, with you, Matt. So, I mean, when you arrive after your professional cricketing career at Kent finishes a couple of decades ago, but you press fast forward to about 10 years ago, and you're able to kind of tap into taco whilst at the same time advancing the cricket that you know from back home, and doing it all in underprivileged areas where you think there might be a chance to do something more. It's not just about cricket, but it's about the social development of the area as well.
Absolutely. I think that the whole idea of us using cricket was just a way of us using something that we knew that we could do and could take to others, and taking cricket to the underprivileged areas around town. And unfortunately in Brazil, there's quite a lot of underprivileged areas. We saw that cricket was just a tool that how we could get into these people and teach them a few more life skills and teach them a bit more about discipline, about respect, about family values, and cricket was our tool for that. Things have moved on a lot now, and I'm sure we'll talk about it with the university programs and the numbers of kids playing. But our first movement was really just taking cricket to people, knowing that it's a great sport and the values that cricket has.
So, Roberta, when did you first encounter cricket, and how did it draw you in? Was it quick? Did it take a while? Like, what was it that made you think this is what I want to keep doing? You know, not just something I'm doing for a short time.
Well, I got married to an Englishman.
That helps.
It does help. And we moved to Brazil, in the same city that Matt was living. And he was invited to teach cricket to these kids in the project as well. And we had a softball game on every Monday night. It convinced me to go one of these nights. And I think what caught my eye first was the environment. It was a very good environment to be in. So we had this happy place, fun place that everybody was playing sport and enjoying themselves. And because I came from a very competitive sport environment from the golf competitions, I think that really made me relax and enjoy the sport. And then what really made me say that I wanted to be involved in that sport, I want to play it, was what Matt said, the values. I think good sport with good values make you actually be part of it. So I think that's what made me stick in cricket and take it for a much longer period of time.
And in terms of how this goes on this upward rise, Matt, the work you're doing in Poços de Caldas, I hope I've pronounced that correctly, the social project you're working on, and cricket's a big part of that. When do you realise, as part of that there might be something here, that it's not just about what you're doing with those kids in underprivileged areas, but there might be something more there? By that I mean there could be an escalation, it could be a chance for Brazil to advance through the world rankings and eventually be in a position to pay their players and have these far loftier ambitions, which we'll talk about in a bit.
Obviously, when we started with 26 children in the orphanage, which was the first place that we took cricket to in the town, we never were thinking down the line of having central contracts of professional players of the national team. It was just simply providing an environment, as Roberta said, that was a fun environment, a pleasant environment to spend your time, and not only just pleasant, that they'd learn and play a little bit of cricket. That was how it started, just having a couple of hours of fun each week with a group of people from the children's home. You say, as this grew on and went through, we've gone from 24 to 4,800 each week. And to be honest, if it wasn't for the pandemic, we'd be looking at bringing those numbers a lot higher. We realised that as the fun sessions started with the tennis ball and with softballs, that there was actually potential there. And we started an under-13 team, an under-17 team. When you start looking at these children, thinking there's actually good cricketers playing here. This is not just the just the fun part of cricket. There's actually people with a bit of potential, and that started taking it on to the next step. Really, the pathway of cricket came from nothing that was studied in 2009, 2010. It was just a progression of seeing people spend time, get better. Some of the kids never wanted to move into a hardball situation, which was fine. We've got children here that play softball cricket for 10 years, and that's great. We've got others from the 4,000 that say, no, we want to play the next level. And as you say, we've now grown to a situation where we've got kids that are actually very talented. The women's team and the under-19s team, I think in a little bit of time, we could have professional players traveling from Brazil, going to other countries, playing cricket professionally in other countries, coming back, representing Brazil, being role models in their communities, which is really important for us, because that was really how cricket changed, and not playing our part down, but having a load of expats or myself or Richard go to a community as an Englishman that played a little bit of cricket, and you probably built me up too much saying an ex-professional Kent cricketer, because I was a very average second team player. But anyway, we then realised that going to these communities, the reality of myself and Richard was a reality that they liked, but it wasn't their reality. They were looking at two expats that have been brought up in a different country, talking about a game that they used to play. When we realised and started with locals that we picked up as our black T-shirts, and that was our first programme, we had the black T-shirt programme, they became the role models. And once Brazilians that lived in the community were telling other Brazilians in the community that this is a great game, this has got a future, there's a pathway, there's a university program, it became a reality. And the numbers, to be honest, grew massively, because they were looking at their friends from the local neighbourhood saying, well, if they can do it, so can I. This is not just a one-off opportunity, this is a whole lifestyle that we could go into. And whether they become coaches or professional players, or just become people that play softball cricket in this pleasant environment, it's an environment that people want to be involved in. So we actually had to bring the numbers down because we had more numbers and we didn't have enough coaches to deal with the numbers. We're now in that process of creating coaches because, as I say, we've got people to play. We just haven't at the moment got the number of coaches to deal with the demand.
I'm interested in the physicality of cricket, because the action of bowling is not a very natural action. The action of batting, the way you hit the ball is not the way that, if you give a kid a bat and tell them to hit a ball, they won't hit it in the way that a cricketer would. And if you're teaching kids from a young age to do it, then they get used to it. And once you start to get used to it, then every cricketer walks around the house bowling imaginary deliveries and so on. It starts to feel natural after a while. But I'm interested, Roberta, as someone who didn't play cricket, you weren't learning it as a child, how it feels to be sort of teaching your body to do something completely different, or learning that your body can do something that you didn't know that it could do before.
Well, I hit a lot of golf shots. But it's a good question, because I started cricket at an old age. I started when I was 27, 28. I have always been an athlete, and I always taught my body things that it should learn, but cricket is different. But you're able to adapt. You're able to learn. It could take a little bit of time, because as you said, it's not normal. You're gonna feel muscles in your body that you never felt. You're gonna feel pain in places that you never thought existed. But I think now that we have more and more coaches, more and more people doing it, the kids can relate and learn much quicker. When we started where we didn't have many people, it was a question of a lot of patience, a lot of practice, and a lot of effort from your body to learn that. Our bodies are very smart. It learns, it adapts. And if you have the willingness to learn it will get into it. One thing that is very interesting is, like in Brazil, we develop mainly 4 or 5 sports only. And these 5 sports are great, but we have 200 million people in Brazil. And a lot of people are not gonna fit in these 4 or 5 sports. So cricket comes as a new gap for them to say, you know what, I don't have skills to play football, but I actually have skills to play cricket, and gives them another option of sport to be played. as it should be, because we have a lot of talent across the country. We just have to put another option for them of what they can do.
Yeah, and this is where it gets really interesting, isn't it? So all these talented young prospective cricketers, or who may or may not have picked up the game the way you have, Roberta, or maybe they've picked it up through the program that Matt's running in the schools, or maybe it's through the orphanage, whatever it takes to get there, we arrive at a place where there are pockets of Brazil where more cricket is being played than football, which just seems staggering to me, Matt. Can you tell that story? And it's a story of pride for the local mayor as well.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the good things about cricket is the local community have bought into this. They've seen the benefits of it. And the local governor, who's never been a cricket player, is our biggest fan. The local government are falling over themselves to help us, which is fantastic. And as I say, I was at a presentation a couple of weeks ago. They were opening a new five-a-side football pitch. And his opening speech as the mayor was, "This is a great game. You would have thought this is the Brazilian national game, but in our city, we've got more people that play cricket than play football." And it's great because everyone turns up and thinks, "What's cricket?" And if they've never heard of it, and especially people from neighbouring towns that have not heard of it, then start to get interested. And our mayor is one of our biggest sales pitch, because when I go and speak to other mayors, and we've actually closed deals with all the other local towns around us, for them to then put cricket on the community projects as well. So he sells it for us. It's brilliant.
And in terms of that local engagement you referred to before, I mean, I love the idea of the Black T-shirt program where these coaches aren't necessarily you. I mean, you're not relying on expats. That has been a criticism, I suppose, of some developing nations, associate affiliate nations, is that they rely so heavily on expats that it can be difficult to develop a local cricketing culture, which means that it's not necessarily sustainable in the longer term. But you've got the complete opposite approach where you're almost, as an administrator, hands off and allowing the cricket side of things to be people who've gone through your program, learnt the game, and now can teach the game.
Absolutely. As I say, to make this a national game, you've got to have nationals playing it. Was a massive thing for us that we wanted to get Brazilians teaching and playing the game and in the game. So, yeah, every week we sort of take a step back and they take over a bit more. We haven't got an expat in our women's team. They're all Brazilians. In our under-19s, there's no expats. Not saying we don't want expats, and we think they play an important part in Cricket Brazil, but they don't play as an important part in the national teams. We want nationals really putting the Brazilian shirt on, feeling proud to play for Brazil, and that does our marketing for us. One thing pushes another.
So part of what you've put together with the coaching program, the Black T-shirt program, is putting those coaches through university as well. Is that partly to sort of offer an extra incentive to get involved, or is it so they can justify doing this when speaking with their families or so on, that they're getting something extra out of this than just playing a strange game that English people play?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It does. The strange game, just to go off the subject, I realised how strange it was when I first arrived in Brazil and started talking about what a great game cricket was, and it lasted for a day or 5 days. And you'd look at people's faces and you'd realise that there was only one strange person in the room, and it was you. It wasn't them. But going back to the university programme, it was a strange thing because the families actually were the hardest people to convince. Were the families. I spent more time with the families convincing them that this was a great idea for their children to do. Because, as we know, being part of cricket is great. The chance to play professional cricket is great. But if you can get a university degree behind you, that will change your life whether you play cricket or not. And therefore, opportunity was an opportunity that we thought we could offer to people. Of course, we'd love them to come and work for us, but that's not the guaranteed agreement. The agreement is they take part in a cricket scheme, they teach cricket to the local community, they do the university, and potentially they come and work for us. If that changes and they go and work for somebody else and their life has been made better through this program, well, that's the goal we're aiming at. We're not actually aiming at just making coaches. So, yeah, it's been great. They are the first people in their families that have ever been to university, which is a strange thing. You think you talk about university to the families and the uncles and aunties, they're saying, why would you do that? Why would they go and learn for another 4 years? None of us have done this before, so is it a good thing? we are slowly breaking that barrier and they're finding out that it actually opens a lot more opportunities for them.
And so, Roberta, sorry, you go, Jeff. Jump in, mate.
No, that's right. And
Dogs in the background.
My dogs want to talk.
oh yeah, what kind of dogs do you have?
I've got 2 mutt breed. A breed. Yes, 2
Yeah, mongrels.
Yeah, that word.
So these younger players who are coming through, you're leading them now. You're the captain for this team, and it must be quite exciting to be taking players overseas for the first time, or needing to look after them, I guess, as they come up into this national setup.
Yes, it's actually very interesting because when I start this journey, I was in the same level as they were in terms of cricket, but it was a different age. So these kids were very young. They're coming from social projects. They're traveling for the first time. They were learning things. So you become this role model for them, not because of the cricket skills, but because you become the role model because you're the person that they look after as a reference because you're older, because you have lived these things before. So it actually brought me a sense of responsibility that I didn't think I was going to have in cricket. It felt very good, and also felt like I should use that responsibility for good. So learn how to be better for them and learn how to teach them skills that would help them for life. So it is interesting. I had a nickname of the Big Mom at the start because the girls were so young, and I had age to be their mom. Now with this new setup, with the central contracts coming, I think I'm less of a mom and more of a person that they can talk to in terms of things of life and cricket things. So it is very rewarding to be in this position for the new generation of cricketers that are coming from Brazil.
And the team's really on the march as well. I mean, you've done really well in the South American Women's Championship over the last 5 or 6 years, winning that fairly sort of routinely and taking that next step. And it sort of made me think about 2 things, and the Irish example stands out in my mind on this. When they were taking their big step perhaps 15 years ago, it was about facilities, and it was about not so much kit with them. They were able to get supplies, but it was where is cricket going to be played? Where is the high performance centre going to be? And these sort of practical questions they needed to answer, and a lot of countries have had to answer as they make it through, because obviously cricket's a sort of sport where you need a lot of space and a lot of equipment. So perhaps if we can tell that story a bit as well. Where are you playing these games of cricket? How are you developing? Is it turf pitches, hard wicket pitches, a combination of the two, or something different altogether? And how you're getting the equipment and developing equipment? Because I know with Vanuatu, for example, that was a fascinating story with a bat maker in Melbourne. But have you been allied with different groups around the world who are supplying you with materials?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, with the Irish story, we've got a great advantage over the Irish that we don't have to worry about when the next sunny day is going to come. We've got plenty of sunshine. We don't have to worry about the rain. So we're already on the advantage of most of the world. When it comes to playing, we've started off using just any facility. We use tennis courts, basketball courts to start the social projects and community projects. We now, through work with the local government, they've provided us grounds to use. They are concrete pitches with AstroTurf wickets over the top. We're quite at the stage where we've got people that can look after proper grass wickets at the moment, but who knows, that's one thing that could come on. As far as equipment goes, it's a massive difficulty for us. And as you know, we've partnered with the Lord's Taverners, who have done some fantastic work around the world, and specifically with us. We actually received the largest shipment of Lord's Taverners equipment they've ever done, and that was brought over here. That made a real difference and was a real game changer for us to put bats and balls in people's hands of high quality. So we've actually set up our own bat factory now. We've actually made our own cricket bat factory in this town. We've got 2 people working for us that are making cricket bats. The reason for that is they're not going to be the high quality bats that the first team and the national team are using. but they are going to be the bats that are going to be the first bat for the person who starts a project in a street that can actually take home his own local bat and be proud of it. And that's something we wanted to do. We wanted to make sure that if we're going to get this out to Brazilians, we can't rely on bats being imported every 6 weeks or every 3 weeks from England or India to here. So we've opened up our own cricket bat factory, and that's going well.
Yeah, and that Lord's Taverner's parcel or crate, I suppose it was, wasn't it? Shipping container. Sorry, that's the word I'm looking for. Alistair actually told us about that before we started this conversation. That in itself comes with a pretty amazing story. And now there are kids in your town wearing the playing shirts of former international cricketers.
Absolutely. I mean, the container that the Lord's Taverner sent over was a complete game changer for us. It was, as I say, we'd received pallets or bats and balls we'd never seen. Imagine opening a container and seeing it completely full of cricket equipment. Logistically, that was a nightmare, but thankfully other people have brought into the project, and the British ambassador actually brought it over as his own personal container. So that helped massively. Amazing. I walk around town and as I say, Liam, who's our head coach, who's from Devon, the first shirt he saw walking past was Overton from Somerset, and he's walking down the road and he's seeing Stuart Broad's shirt walking around, and he's saying, we live in quite a small community, and seeing the England shirts that come round, the county shirts, is fantastic. It really is great.
One of the interesting points about what to do next, you're talking about growing the program sustainably and so on. But when it comes to the Olympics and cricket, it's been, as far as the top cricket countries go, it's been this very self-indulgent conversation that they've been sort of kicking back and forth for about 30 years, saying, should we have cricket in the Olympics? Oh, well, it might clash with this and that, and it might be more trouble than it's worth. And then you look at the role that would play for countries like Brazil and so many of the smaller associate countries who get so little ICC funding to rely on. And the Olympics could be the most important change in cricket, and yet it's one that keeps being delayed. Can you explain to us what that Olympics of ambition is and what the difference is that it could make?
Absolutely. So the Olympics is so important for the 90-odd associate members that sit below the full members. I understand, and as you know, I work with the ICC as the global representative. The people I represent, which are the associates, would cry out for it to be an Olympic sport. It would be something that would change specifically the funding model. The funding model of the ICC is split and helps massively, but with the Olympic participation, that could really change. You get internal support, you get a buy-in from your local government, and it's the one thing that when associates and when Brazil go and talk to the local government, the first question that comes back is, are you an Olympic sport? Can you have Olympic funding? And unfortunately, as you say, this is being thrown around the boardroom table with the top countries. We are just hoping that in 2028 or 2029, when it may be, that cricket will be an Olympic sport in the USA. We will have a chance to at least try and participate. But what it will do, it will open funding from national governing bodies to be able to help out cricket grow in Brazil.
And I suppose that just that passion for Olympic sports in Brazil, right? Like there's that fervour around any Olympic sport, as I understand it, in your part of the world, so that it's not just the part of Brazil that currently is playing it where you are, but suddenly you're having a very different conversation with young kids around the country that they can be an Olympian for Brazil and have that extraordinary privilege.
Yeah, and it's something that everyone dreams about. It's one of those sports that, or one of those competitions that to be a part of is probably every sporting person's dream. And therefore, if cricket could be part, and Brazilians not only have got a chance to take part, but a chance to do well. They've got a chance to shine. It gives them that next goal. It gives them that next pathway point to aim for. And really, I think it's a great possibility for a lot of associate countries. And we've seen Thailand women jump up into the World Cup. Well, they'd be someone who'd be perfectly fitting into an Olympic scenario an Olympic sport, it would just open up more doors for more countries.
And we've heard about the expansion of both of the World Cup formats as well by a couple of places. So is that something that piques your interest, that maybe you might be able to qualify for a T20 World Cup at, say, the later end of this decade?
The aim is that. We definitely feel that that's what we're striving after. The national teams are training hard. Obviously, the national teams are training hard, but seeing the progression of how, especially women's sport, is progressing. Who would imagine that in 2020, 86,000 people would have been at the MCG to watch the women's final? It's something that 10 years ago, we all know that they put the women's game a couple of hours before the men's game just to try and get a few early participants turning up to watch the game. Now, the women's game on its own is filling out a stage of that capacity. So things are definitely changing. We definitely feel that there is a chance that Brazil can be part of this. And not just Brazil, there are so many other associate nations that many people don't even know play. Apart from the top 12 full countries, if you speak to a lot of cricketing countries, they don't know that Argentina, Peru, Chile have got national teams and are doing well. And I think that whole thing of the Olympics coming in, that will open the door for all of these countries that are less known to make a name for themselves.
Roberta, sorry, you go again. So you go.
Roberta, your team in the shorter term, you've gone from 32nd in the rankings to 27th. What's coming up the next couple of assignments for you, and what are your ambitions with that team in the shorter term?
I think our biggest ambition is the qualifiers for the World Cup. We have the regional qualifiers coming up this year, and we want to do very well in it. I think this is the first goal that we have, the first and probably the most important goal that we have at this moment. And we want to play more. I know the pandemic is playing a big part of it. So it's not allowing us to travel, it's not allowing us to play more games against better teams. But that's our intention for the soon near future, to be able to play more against more competitive teams and be prepared for the qualifiers.
And when can we come and watch you play? When can we get a delegation of Final Word listeners to watch the Brazil women play? 'Cause I've got a feeling after listening to this interview, you're going to have recruited a great many new fans.
Well, I believe the first time that I think the next time that everybody's going to be able to watch us is going to be in the qualifiers.
Right.
All the will be broadcasted. So I think that's the next option that we have, which is going to be in September, planned for September, and hopefully we'll be allowed to travel sometime soon and be able to play against teams in Europe, teams in South America, and have these games available for you guys.
And that's a wonderful thing, isn't it? That this new broadcasting arrangement the ICC have committed to just in the last couple of weeks means that there'll be quite a few Brazil women's games that we're going to be able to watch live as a stream that never would have been the case even a couple of years ago. This is new and important territory in terms of your exposure and commercialising it, winning sponsors, all that kind of thing.
I think that's great for the women's game. I think the community is asking for more women's sports. They are asking to see these women cricket players. The gap is over there for us to use it. So I think that's great that we're going to be able to show the world what these countries are doing. And you cannot be what you cannot see. So the more people see women's games, more they will want to play women's games. So women's sports. So I think that's going to be great.
And Matt, part of that conversation with funding that I just touched on there, it's been a tough year for anybody that needs to raise funds to stay afloat. And speaking of funding, Matt, which I did in my previous question, I suppose every organisation that relies on a consistent revenue stream that's trying to grow and emerge has been hit by COVID-19, and you'll be no different. You've got a new crowdfunding page that you've opened up recently, which we'll, of course, put into our show notes for this episode, but it is an important time to keep the momentum going in many ways, but that includes funding for you.
Yeah, funding, obviously, COVID has affected us massively. We're very fortunate that we've gone up the ICC rankings and therefore receive an ICC grant, but local funding, which we depend on with COVID, has been difficult. So this new gogetfunding.com site is something that we're looking at, as you say, to help the momentum, to not let things die down, and to keep providing people the opportunity to play cricket throughout this pandemic.
we've been extremely excited to learn about a little bit more about the Cricket Brazil story, and we will be keeping an eye on it. Matt, Roberta, good luck with it, and thanks for joining the final word.
Been fantastic. Really appreciate your time. Please keep looking us up, because good things are going to keep happening here. This is the start of something new, and we really feel that every year things are going to get better and better. And so maybe we'll have the final word come to see Cricket Brazil, or we can have a few more final words in the future to tell you what's happening.
Excellent.
Thank you much, guys. It was a pleasure to be here with you, and keep following us in the social media. It's going to be a pleasure for us to share our stories and be with you more often.
Thank you. That was such a nice way to finish it as well, guys. Thanks for making it work. Thanks, Alistair, for kind of giving us all that information ahead of time so we knew what we were talking about a little bit more, which always helps in interviews like that. It's a tremendous story. I actually think it's probably a book in this. So I might be hassling you, Matt, offline about this, about trying to get over there when this is all over, because I think there's probably a book or a documentary in this, because it's a ridiculously important story about growing the game, and that you've been able to find a way of doing it as a social project. Like, it's perfect. So yes, we're going to be very engaged, I think, over the next few years with what you guys are up to.
Brilliant. Feel free. So it'll be a pleasure here in Brazil. Come see it, live it, and be part of it, because it is. We're very fortunate to be involved in something that's not just making a success, but it is successful. We knew it would be, and using cricket, why wouldn't it be a great thing to be part of?
Thanks, guys.
I love Brazil anyway. I spent some time there about 10 years ago, and so I'll be pretty keen to come back with any excuse. So keep playing, keep winning, and we'll have to come over.
Yeah, we'll take it. We'll take a team over there, Jeff. We were joking the other day that we're going to take a team to Pakistan next year for Australia's tour there, but maybe what we'll need to do is take a team to Pakistan via Brazil and make a proper
via
tour.
Brazil.
Absolutely.
The logical step.
Thanks, guys. Have a nice rest of your day, and let's stay in touch.
This is the final word with Jeff Lemon and Adam Collins. Thank you to Roberta and Matt for taking the time to speak with us about cricket in Brazil. Our next stop is that on the way to Pakistan, or do we go to Pakistan first? Adam will be in charge of travel arrangements. He'll have how would it work if we're going? Well, let's assume the trips we're triangulating Pakistan. I'm coming from UK. You're coming from Australia. I'll take the high road. You'll take the low road, and I'll be at Dera, Ismail Khan before you. We'll work on that, but. Yeah. Brazil and Pakistan are both on the itinerary for 2022. Okay. Make no mistake. All right. Yeah, I reckon maybe Pakistan first might be more conveniently located, but yeah, we'll figure that out on the way. We've got our last bit of correspondence because we have been asking our audience for nominations for your favourite bannerman. That is to say, an innings that exceeds the 67.35% of the total team runs in a completed innings scored by Charles Bannerman in the first ever Test match. And we have a link to that first ever Test match that was sent in by Eamon Hark, first of all, Adam. Yeah, he just wanted to point out that yesterday was the 144th anniversary since the first ever Test match, so at March 1877 at the Melbourne Cricket Ground. He adds that there are two incredible facts from that match. One is that Tom Horan was born in Cork Island, and two, that Bransby Cooper was born in Dhaka, the capital of Bangladesh, both of his countries. So Eamon Huck, who is the Irish Bangladeshi, it was accounted for in the first Test match played 144 years ago this week, Jeff. And as far as a Bannerman-like nomination, this one comes in from Anthony Radford, who says, I'm relying on memory a bit, as it was pre-digital and pre-MyCricket. So we're now getting into sort of country pub furphy, this is how I kicked 7 points to win the game sort of territory. I was 16 or 17 playing A grade, says Anthony, in the early 90s for Broadford against Nagambie in the Seymour District Cricket Association. Nagambie was new in the league and had secured the services of the second best batsman in the comp as their captain coach, Barrel Barnes. I have forgotten his first name if I ever knew it. He was a big hitter who could take the game away in 10 minutes, and this was a pretty good league. We had a lot of former district players still making an impact. On this day, we got a couple of quick wickets, and I found myself bowling my offies to Barrel early in his innings. I was working on an arm ball and thought I would try it out. He was on one. I was super excited to see him nick it to our captain at first slip, only to see him put it down. Anyway, at the end of the innings, Barrel had hit 138 and the Gambie was bowled out for 160. What made things worse was our innings the next Saturday. I was at the non-striker's end, batting 8 or 9, telling the number 11 to get his body behind the ball. He tried to hit one out of the park, was clean bowled, and we lost by 4 runs. Barrel picked up 3 or 4 wickets.
Well, I just did a quick calculation then. That means that Barrel struck 86.3% of the runs, which is right up there in Glen Turner land. That's, I mean...
That's a theme
I'm
park
going to ask...
open.
Yeah, Glen Turner land.
Welcome to Glen Turner land.
It's going to be put next to that hotel they have at Worcestershire. Maybe it can be next to the cathedral there at Worcestershire. It'd be a fitting tribute to the great New Zealander. But Anthony Radford, I want to see...
It's got to have an aquarium, because it's going to be underwater half the year.
That's true. That's true. I want to see some documentary evidence of this, Anthony. He's a resourceful chap, Anthony Radford. That much we know. We know that he still is quite involved with cricket in that part of Victoria. I'm sure he can find a scorebook from the day that they played Nagambie back in the early 90s. I have faith in you, Anthony. Find it, digitise it,
club archives
send it to us, and we can verify the 138 out of 160. Because if it is 86.3, that's nearing very special territory. We can't have that on spec. We need to know for sure.
Yep. I will say that he said the score was about 160. So if it was, say, 164 or 166, it would lower the percentage slightly.
Dramatically.
Yeah. So, but these are fine margins, Anthony. We need to know what we're dealing with here. I think that's the show for today. Final word. Jeff Lemon, Adam Collins, this is what we do. Thank you to everyone for listening. Cbus Super and Zolio help keep the show on the park. You can add .coms to their respective names and find them on the internet. Look, you know how the internet works. You'll figure it out. Bad Producer Productions, they are our podcast label. There are lots of other nice shows on there as well that you can go and listen to. They're not about cricket. That would be weird if they were, but they're about all kinds of other things because you can be a rounded human being and have more than one sort of interest. Mostly, thanks to everyone on the Patreon page. You actually are the lifeblood of the show. Dave Collins is the editor and has listened to us talk for the last however long it has been. And I think those are all of the people we need to credit today.
I think you're right. One parting thought is that we're just on the cusp of 600 patrons, Jeff, which is lovely. We talked on Storytime last week about trying to overtake James Anderson in terms of more patrons than wickets he has. I think he's got 614 Test wickets at the moment. So
right.
Help us reach Jimmy. May this be our last thought. If you've enjoyed what we've done across the first 2 million downloads, as it were, and you want to help us make it that we do 2 million
just
more.
one guy. Imagine it was just one dude just out there, just changing his IP address every day, so the computer thinks it's a different computer, just downloading the show again. I really liked it the first time. Look,
I 2 million.
I salute your endeavour, if so.
So help us catch up with Jimmy, and we'll have more on that kind of thing on Storytime on the weekend. That's it, Jeff. Let's say goodbye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Say goodbye. Do your waves. Good girl.